such an honor to be here. We have an incredible lineup of speakers for us for this session. And I just want to start by sort of setting the stage. We had the incredible overturning of Roe v. Wade thanks to Mississippi and the Dobbs decision just a couple years ago. Yes, that's something worth clapping for. And since that time, we've had tremendous opportunity to empower women to choose life, to protect the unborn. But we've also met with some incredible obstacles. There have been some very big challenges in the movement to be able to protect families and protect the most vulnerable. And part of the reason why that is because of the lies that the abortion industry perpetrates across this country. And I know women across this country, there's women even here who have been harmed and impacted by that lie that life isn't vulnerable and that women cannot live successful lives and be mothers. And so this first segment, we're going to talk a little bit about that. How do we expose this lie, this myth that the abortion industry pushes? How do we defund the abortion industry completely? And how do we replace that with life-saving care for women? So joining me, I'm thrilled to have an amazing panel here. We have Mayra Rodriguez, who's a former director for 17 years at a Planned Parenthood clinic in Arizona, who's now come out of the clinic and is advocating for life. We have We have my amazing and very dear friend, the Attorney General of Louisiana. I will never get tired of saying that. Liz Murrill from the great state of Louisiana. And last but certainly not least, my wonderful colleague, John Bursch. John leads ADF's appellate team here at ADF. He's argued at the Supreme Court 13 times. He's an amazing leader. And so we're gonna dive in. And Mayra, I wanna, yes, you can clap for John too. Mayra, I want to start with you. As I mentioned, you worked in a Planned Parenthood clinic for 17 years. You received Employee of the Year award in 2016. You worked at numerous centers across Arizona, but in 2017, things shifted. Tell us about what you experienced there at Planned Parenthood that kind of started to open your eyes to what was going on.
You know, just like many women that have worked for the abortion industry, I started at Planned Parenthood thinking I was going to help women. I was going to make them successful. And for many years, I directed centers that had nothing to do with abortion. But when I jumped into the abortion facility, being forced for Trump defunding on the first round 2016, being forced to take over an abortion facility, I saw the horrors of abortion. I got the phone calls from women crying constantly at night, scared about what was going on with them, the perforations, all the falsifying of patient charts, how they will disregard their medical history, like if a woman showed up with high blood pressure, then they will falsify her records so she would qualify for an abortion pill. How it was all about numbers and numbers and money, and it was just about abortion. And that's what changed my mind, and there's more.
Well, there is more. I know in 2017, you witnessed a second trimester abortion. Tell us what happened that truly just was your breaking point.
Yeah, that was the tip of the iceberg. So I witnessed the 14-week had an abortion, and that goes through dismemberment of the baby, and they were missing a head. Now, keep in mind, the state of Arizona has a legislation. They have to sign an affidavit attesting that they have accounted every single baby part, but they don't do that. Right? They pre-sign everything in the morning before they even meet the patients. And the staff member came and said, Mayra, we're missing the baby head. And I know he's going to fire me for telling you, but I don't know what to do. We went back into the room. I did an ultrasound, found the baby head above the IUD, and just to make the story short, the client had 2 abortions done the same day. The chart was falsified, never mentioned anything that happened in the room. The client doesn't know that happened to her. That was my breaking point. I was like, that's it. That's it. I cannot do this anymore, and I cannot allow them to do this anymore.
So what did you do at that point?
Well, you know, I had complained about other staff and all the issues that I had accounted, and then I went up and met with Cecile Richards, the former CEO, which now she passed away. May God have mercy on her soul. And, you know, I told her, I remember meeting her briefly, and I said, hey, you know, I would like your help with some stuff happening at the abortion facility in Arizona. I'm the director there, and I don't know what to do, who to call, hoping she will give me a number, a direction, and she just pat in the back and say, hang in there. I knew at that moment she didn't care.
She didn't care. She didn't care about women's health, and I know you were shocked, so you ultimately blew the whistle. You blew the whistle on them, and you were fired for saying you're not caring for women's health, and so you left. You left the abortion industry. So I know now you're an advocate for women, for life. You travel around the country to protect them. For those of us here in the audience, there's so much about Planned Parenthood that's a problem. But if you were going to highlight two or three things, what would you highlight? What really stands out to you as horrific?
Well, they only care about abortion quotas and, of course, transgender services now. They only care about their business. Their tentacles are deep inside, rooted on all the countries globally, legislations and everything. And that's all they care about.
It's unbelievable. Well, John, in 2015, 2016, that time period, states started recognizing some of the same things that Myra has explained about Planned Parenthood. And Governor McMaster in 2017 said, you know what, we want to defund Planned Parenthood and other abortion providers in our state. And so they did that in 2017. They were immediately sued. And so 8 years this was wrapped in litigation. And finally, just a couple weeks ago, you argued this case for the governor of South Carolina before the Supreme Court. We had an amazing victory in that. Tell us what the victory said, break down the decision for us. What does this mean for states going forward?
Well, Kelly's very modest because 10 years ago, she was on the front lines in helping states to defund Planned Parenthood, to disqualify them as a Medicaid provider. But as she mentioned, there were federal judges around the country who were entering injunctions forcing states to put them back on the payroll. And what Planned Parenthood did is it would recruit women who had been to a Planned Parenthood or would say that they wanted to go to a Planned Parenthood, and they would help them become a plaintiff in federal court with Planned Parenthood. And these federal courts were saying that these plaintiffs could wave their magic wand and pick the Medicaid provider of their choice. And of course, they always wanted an abortion provider. So after years of this, the Supreme Court finally took the case and declared once and for all that this scheme of recruiting plaintiffs and going to federal court was not how Medicaid was supposed to work. And this totally opens the door for states that have done so in the past but want to do so going forward to disqualify Planned Parenthood and other abortion providers from their state Medicaid programs. It's a huge win.
Huge win. It's massive, yes. And not only abortion providers, John. They said states can determine who is a qualified provider, which would mean they could also strip funding from the providers of the horrific transition drugs and procedures we heard about yesterday as well, right?
Ironically, many of those are Planned Parenthood. They're now the second largest provider of the puberty blockers and cross-sex hormones, like you heard from Callista yesterday, in that gender ideology space. And so they can be defunded for that reason, but other gender clinics could be as well.
Well, an amazing victory. And Liz, I want to bring you in now. You actually litigated this issue back in the day when you were the Solicitor General of Louisiana. At the time, the court didn't resolve the issue. Sometimes it takes a while for these issues to percolate through the court. So I'm curious, what does this decision mean for you seeing finally justice brought for the states? And then tell us what's in the future for Louisiana and for other states when they're looking at how to determine who is a qualified provider when it comes to abortion.
Well, thanks to John's big win, we now are in the driver's seat on that issue. 3 governors ago in Louisiana, we defunded Planned Parenthood and immediately were thrown into this same litigation. That's where John and I became friends in bringing that first round of litigation through the United States Supreme Court on whether we could choose who our qualified providers are and not have someone come in and challenge that individually with a private right of action. We had 12 relists at the United States Supreme Court before our case got kicked out, and they punted until John managed to get this case back up there now and win. So it was really, really rewarding to hear him argue this case. It was watching, a ballet. I mean, it was just magnificent. I cannot say enough about what a great job he did and how rewarding it was to listen and then see this win. Louisiana is so blessed to have a really pro-life legislature, and it's very bipartisan. And I know Gene Mills is in here and Blanche and they run Louisiana Family Forum, very supportive around the whole state, and we have some of the most pro-life laws in the country, and have for a very long time. which meant that we were litigating and defending every abortion law that we had passed to regulate abortion or prohibit it. When Dobbs passed all of our regulations, we banned abortion in Louisiana. So that was a big win for us and a lot of other states who've done the same thing. We are in a different world now. I mean, there was a time when I had 6 pending lawsuits challenging every regulation and every law that we have, and spent a lot of time defending against the lies that are told in these cases. It has been challenging. They have protective orders. They have a lot of other mechanisms. They have built research out through years of cultivating sympathy in the academy. We did not have the same kind of body of research. We were I was having to fight whether I could produce public records that were being placed under seal regarding the conduct at the clinic or the violation of our health standards and things like that. I mean, it was just, we were in gutter warfare with these clinics and with Planned Parenthood for many, many years, and Dobbs and the Medina case have changed all that.
The future looks very, very bright for states to have this opportunity. John, I want you to address a criticism that I hear very often, which is, where will all the poor women, the impoverished families go if Planned Parenthood is defunded? Where will they go? Won't they lose access to care? What's your response?
Yeah, that's a lie, and we need to know that it's a lie and push back on that. If you look just at the state of South Carolina and you add up the number of federally qualified health clinics as well as rural providers that can provide Medicaid services, the ratio of those clinics to Planned Parenthood is 15 to 1. You can see up there on the screen that there are 8,800 community health centers that you can get these services from nationwide, compared to 579 Planned Parenthood locations. And so there are plenty of places that women can go and get comprehensive health care. You need to understand that Planned Parenthood is not providing much besides abortion and gender transition drugs. Since 2010, the number of cancer screenings, for example, that they provide has dropped more than 70%. And if you wanted to go and have a mammogram done at a Planned Parenthood, you couldn't do that because they don't provide that service. They're really good at abortion and gender drugs, and that's really about it. And women have better choices.
It's so true. And Myra, I want to come back to you. What was it like for you, having been on the inside of Planned Parenthood, having advocated for Planned Parenthood to be funded, and then I know you were there that day when John argued the case, and then you got the news of the win. What did that mean for you as someone who's now an advocate for life and for women?
You know, after years of helping them deceive women, after years of helping them lie to women and do this to the citizens of our country, to be able to stand on the other side, and watch someone like John come out, and the way he came out, like feeling confident about what he has done there. And then hearing that news, my daughter is the one who came in the morning and said, "You guys won." And I said, "Won what?" And then she told me, I was like, amazing, we did it. Finally, we get to have a light in this darkness.
So true. Well, Liz, in addition to looking at Planned Parenthood and exposing that lie, more broadly, you're working on some things in Louisiana to promote women's health. And I think a lot of state attorneys general are doing the same thing. But what are you working on to really advocate for women's health in Louisiana?
Well, this is something that is just it is a constant objective for us. It's not something that just started. It didn't start when Dobbs was passed. It's always been part of our objective and our agenda is to always look at how are we actually going to meaningfully protect women and children. One of the things that we're looking at right now are the FDA REMS protocols, and REMS is an acronym, but it's a regulatory structure that actually puts more restrictions on a drug manufacturer when the drug that they have has a higher incident of complications. These abortion pills are now pervasive in our communities. We are dealing with multiple cases of coerced abortions, and women who are being sent these pills in the mail. In our state, that's a crime, but they are being sent by doctors in other states. We actually indicted a doctor for sending pills to a woman who then coerced her daughter to take them. It was a wanted child. The daughter was planning a gender reveal. She was 17, and the mother had coerced her into having the abortion and then left her alone. And the young woman called 911 when the termination was underway, and she was scared, she was alone, and she was coerced. And all of this comes about because some doctor who lives in New York thinks that it's okay to just mail pills to a stranger in Louisiana, and then nobody knows what happens to them after that, and we don't know where the drugs come from. The REMS protocol would help put some restrictions back in place on the governance of that medication. It would help in states where it is legal, and it would certainly help to track medication and the medication that's coming in from other sources that's not tracked. And so I think that's an important protocol to put back in place. Kansas, Idaho, and Missouri joined ADF's lawsuit in Texas, and that lawsuit's been potentially going to be kicked out of Texas because of some venue issues, and so we're evaluating that and what we might be able to do about that. But at the end of the day, the REMS protocol is it needs to be reinstated, and we're going to have to continue to aggressively pursue the way that these pills are being communities, and we have been talking about pursuing the governor of New York, who's blocking our extradition. And I'll say this because you've heard me say this before. This is not health care. These are drug dealers. They are drug dealers. They are not different. It is no different than if they were sending fentanyl into our state. It is illegal. It is a crime, and they are just sending it to people against federal law and state law.
I'm just grateful for you, Liz. You are just such a beacon of hope. Your courage, your conviction to doing the next right thing no matter what. Your fearlessness is just a blessing to the entire country, not just Louisiana, but to the entire country. You're an amazing example. John, you've had a couple weeks to think about the Medina decision, and as all of us are here, we come from different spheres of influence. How do we contend for truth in this moment and push back on the abortion industry's lies? There's no industry it doesn't touch. How do we push back and contend for truth for women and their children?
Well, one thing is to know the facts and shine a spotlight on them. There was a New York Times article, ironically, earlier this year that talked about a lot of the abuses that were happening in the clinics that Myra was talking about, that talks about these drastic drops in the amount of non-abortion services that they're providing, and how hundreds of millions of dollars that they collect goes towards abortion advocacy instead of women's health. So we need to put a spotlight on that. But we also need to put a spotlight on how women are helped when they're given these other life-saving alternatives. In the case that we had at the Supreme Court, the plaintiff, Julie Edwards, put in her complaint that she had diabetes and partial blindness and nerve damage. But when she went to Planned Parenthood, they gave her contraception and told her that she should get her high blood pressure checked out somewhere else. If she had gone less than 1 mile away to another Medicaid clinic, she would have gotten in-network care for all of those maladies that she had. And so when we defund Planned Parenthood and other abortion providers, it's not only stopping that bad, but it's also promoting the good for women, women's health, and we need to tell those kinds of stories.
Myra, last question for you. I know your entire experience coming out of Planned Parenthood and now being an advocate for women, it also brought you back to your faith. So tell us a little bit how it did, and what is your message to all of us? What should we be thinking about as we move forward and go back to our own states about how to live out our faith, live out our love for women and children in this cultural moment?
Well, what people need to know that no one's too far gone. No one's too far gone for God and His mercy. He pulled me out, and now I'm here. And when you prayed for an abortion worker conversion, you pray for her entire household. So don't stop praying. Keep praying, because that's our main tool. And that's the main battle, right? That we must keep praying to convert as many as we can. So even for those abortion workers, please keep praying.
Amen. That's good. Will you join me in thanking this amazing panel for their courage and their conviction?